Hey there, everybody. Greetings. Pete Pardo here from Sea Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of In the Prog Seat. We have arrived at our favorite prog albums of 2021. 2021, our 10 favorites of the year. We've got in the co-captain's chairs today, Mr. Stephen Reid from Scotland. We've got Eric Porter from upstate New York. We got the professor of prog, Ken Golden from New Jersey. And we got our Chicago connection, George Lamie and Louis Nasser. Greetings, gentlemen.
Oh,
okay. So, here on the channel and on the webzine, we've been talking about reviewing all sorts of cool things this year. And then come into the year, it's like, all right, now it's time to put the list together and which ones do we like the most. And as we were talking off camera before we started taping, this was kind of a weird year because you had a lot of really great prog rock releases, some really good fusion releases, some prog metal albums that some might veer a little too much into the metal realm or not. This was kind of hard for me because I've got to do this similar type exercise on Hudson Valley Squares next week, where that show is more of a hard rock and metal themed show. But I've got a lot of things on my list that are metal, but still kind of proggy. So I went a little more conventional prog on my list today. That'll change a little bit for next week. I know everybody here has kind of done little different things, and that's cool because we're probably going to cover a wide spectrum. And then just so everybody knows, I'm going to do a separate show of just all myself later this week, where I'm going to go through my top 30 of the year, and that's going to include everything. So in saying all that, we're going to go, let's see, we're going to go Louis, Ken, Eric, Stephen, George, and myself, and round, starting at number 10. We'll go all the way to number 1. So Louis, kick us off with your number 10.
All right, for me, my number 10 is a record that I wasn't expecting, but I really liked it. It's it features one of the members, at least, of 0 Hour, and I'm talking about A Dying Planet. I love this record. This is I think it's one of those records that it's of its time, but it's also, I mean, the message of the lyrics is on point. It's not a happy record, but it is I think it's an important record. It's a very well-made record, and it has a lot of good things to say. So for people who don't know 0 Hour, well, I don't know why, but you should just get on it. But this is a great album that really surprised me.
Yeah, Jason tipped in the book. Did a good job on there. I like it a lot.
Yeah, Jason just killed it.
Yeah,
awesome.
Very, I mean, you're right. It's a very moody record and not happy at all. And we're not living in happy times right now, right? And I think lyrically, it's all about all the shit that's been going on for the last couple of years. And yeah, I definitely, for those of you watching, if you're a 0 Hour fan, don't expect 0 Hour on this album, but there are melodic little glimpses here and there, right? But it's definitely more.
The guitar is a little like, sometimes it reminds me a little bit of The Edge. It's got a little bit of those delays, and there's other things that you're not expecting to hear from these guys if you know 0 Hour. But it's a great
textures and colors and things like that.
It doesn't have quite the technicality of 0 Hour.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not nonstop crushing. It's there's definitely a lot of textures and a lot of different guitar sounds and things like that. But every now and then they throw out this kind of genty, heavy prog metal stuff, and then they go back into this little atmospheric thing, and it's very cool album. So I dig it a lot. All right, Ken, you're number 10.
Well, my number 10 was this was a late entrant, and Steve Feigenbaum finally got it right. Corda di Contrari. This is the 5th album from this Italian jazz rock ensemble. On, I believe it's 4 of the tracks, the lineup is enhanced with Alessandro Bonetti, who's the violin player from Deus Ex Machina. It's just great, energetic, complex jazz rock. Has a little bit of Mahavishnu Orchestra in its DNA. Very dynamic, lots of contrast, a lot of really nice piano work. Very solid album. It might have gotten up higher if Steve would have gotten off his ass and released it earlier in the year, and I would have been able to spend a little more time with it. But and he's a lazy guy, so but he got it right, and good for him. And excellent album. Accordo
Yes.
di contrari, or minus, UR minus.
Yes.
Yeah, I just got it for you actually, and I haven't even had a chance to listen to it yet. I hate
And
that
I'm gonna,
when you get
I'm
these
gonna-
Dynamite albums come out really late in the year, and like, the end of December, you haven't even had a chance to listen to it, and then you hear it in like January, the last week of December, like, oh, this is so good. This would have made my list, but it's too damn late. So
I'm gonna get a raft of shit from him tomorrow.
yeah. All right, cool. I'm excited to hear that one. All right, Eric, what do you got?
For my number 10, it's been great writing for the channel this year. The website, getting a lot of new releases from you, Pete. This is probably the most I've listened to in terms of new bands over the course of the last number of years. I'm going to start 10 with one that's not going to surprise anybody. And actually the album isn't going to surprise anybody. Transatlantic. And I'm going with The Breath of Life, the abridged version. And if you know Transatlantic, you pretty much know what you're going to get. I went with the abridged version. I just like it better. We've talked about this in the past where sometimes things do go a little too long. The extended version, I think, forevermore. But I love this. It's got the typical great melodies, great playing. I love the guys in this band. And it, if you like Transatlantic, it's going to give you what you like. It's, they're not doing anything really different, but what they do is phenomenal. So that's my number 10.
I would agree. More on that later. Steven.
Well, yeah, this has been really difficult. As you were just saying, Peter, there's always things that pop up late on. And anyone who sees my list that will go up on the webzine in a couple of days, couple of weeks, will look at it and go, this is not the same order. Because I've been tweaking and changing as you listen to things a little more, because that's the way that it works. So right up till now, I'm trying to work out my number 10, and I'm going to stick with Lee Abraham. I don't have props for everything because I am fortunate enough to be sent an awful lot of things for review that I don't have physical copies of yet. I've got myself into an awful habit of writing my list, and then in January I'll look through it and think I need to fill all those gaps now of things that I really like. So I've got props for half tonight. So Lee Abraham, Only Human. For anyone that doesn't know, Lee is the guitarist in Galahad. He's been making a real name for himself in recent times as a solo artist as well. And his solo output has been excellent, kind of peaks and troughs. I think that Only Human is right up there with some of his best work. It kind of sits on one really long track that closes the album out. And he sits perfectly in that kind of modernised neo-prog field that really kind of hits a sweet spot for me. And I think that he's gaining that reputation for all the right reasons. So yeah, Lee Abraham, Only Human is my number 10.
Cool. All right, George.
Right. My number 10, I had kind of a battle. I had like 2 or 3 other ones that were competing. Surprised myself to come to the conclusion of this one. Benjamin Croft, Far and Distant Things. Actually got this from Pete, did the review and checked it out. Modern Fusion Disc, he's a English-based keyboard player. Got a core group of players that are really good, and then adorns it with some guest stars with names, Frank Gambale, Barry Finnerty, Chad Wackerman, all doing a track each. Just a high energy affair for the most part, but a mix of stuff. One ballad, but yeah, it's just a very, very consistently strong release. Benjamin Croft, Far and Distant Things.
Yeah, good songwriting in there too. Nice melodies and good playing. I like that one quite a bit. That's good. Good choice. All right, my number 10. Strangely enough, the debut solo album from this guy, and of course we got it after he passed away, which sucks. Robbie Steinhardt from Kansas. We're not in Kansas anymore. A Prog opera. Excellent stuff. Just amazing how great he still sounded vocally. His violin skills are top notch. He's got like all sorts of guest stars on here. Steve Morse is on here. God, well, I mean, you name it, all sorts of really cool players. And it's just sounds like classic Kansas to me. It's very symphonic. It's fun, loads of violin, lots of keyboards. It just goes by really quick and you just want to hear more. And the sad thing is you get done listening to this and then, there's not going to be any more. So big loss for the Prog world this year. Robbie Steinhardt, we're not in Kansas anymore, or sorry, not in Kansas anymore. It's no we at the beginning of it. Not in Kansas anymore, a Prog opera. Love it. Great stuff. Check it out if you haven't already. Back to Lewis.
All right. So for my number 9, I am going to have to use Ken's prop because it's the same band. It's a Coro de Contreras.
I'll hold it up for you.
There we go. That's the one. I love that record. I love that band in general. I think that, to me at least, it sounded like this was one of their most tame records in a way. Like the other ones are even more out there, but it's a really, really good album. And I don't have my prop because I've been listening to it at work. And when I came home today, I left it there like an idiot. But thank you, Ken, for once again bailing me out. That's the one. And Pete, of course, I got 2 props. So
I haven't even listened to it yet. I just got it. It's like I got all this
I
stuff.
love it. I love that record. It's really, really, really great.
It's good.
That's what I heard. Yeah. So cool.
You'll dig it.
All right, Ken.
All right. Well, number 9. They said it would never happen. They said it couldn't be done, but I called bullshit. I said it's going to happen. As soon as I saw pictures of John Petrucci and Mike Portnoy hanging out, Liquid Tension Experiment 3. So it was inevitable. So right, I mean, that's not going to happen. But it was destined to happen. So
I knew it was going to happen before anybody else.
Did it? That's cool. So
I did an interview with Petrucci like when he put out his solo album, and I asked him like 3/4 of the way through the interview. I'm like, so any now that you had Mike playing on your album, any chance you guys might do like another Liquid Tension Experiment? And he goes, "Can we talk about that off camera?" I'm like, sure. So he swore me to secrecy to not say anything, but he basically the album was already done at that point. So
yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think that their daughters were like roommates or something like that. They're friends.
Yeah.
They're just their family friends, and it's just I think it's just more politics than anything. So I basically they gave the fans what they wanted. They made another Liquid Tension album. For me, it's probably of the 3, it's probably my least favorite. But I still think it's an absolutely solid album. I'm not big on the Rhapsody in Blue thing at 13 minutes. It's a little long for me. And also, it was an old piece that they did. They did it at Nearfest, actually.
Correct.
So, but yeah, I mean, you can't complain. I mean, made my list. So
that's
I
right.
like the improv stuff on it.
I like it all. I have, look, they're all very tough light musicians, and it's to me it's cohesive, which is what I want to hear when I mean it's got all the elements you would expect from the 4 guys, and they sound like a unit. And what else would I want?
Right. Yeah.
It's a Liquid Tension. It's a Liquid Tension Experiment album. It's not,
Checks
and it's a good one.
Checks all those boxes.
Exactly. As I said, it gave any fan of Liquid Tension is going to like this album. By the way, they're reissuing Liquid Tension Experiment 2. Maybe 1 also is getting, because they've been out of print for quite a while. I think there's something happening with the Magna Carta catalog. May have changed hands, and Cleopatra is reissuing them.
Oh.
So I'm just hoping they don't screw around with them.
Yeah, right.
Yes. But anyway, this is my number 9. Good album.
Cool.
Yep.
All right, Eric.
I'm going to start this one with something that I'll probably say after everyone I recite, is that after putting my list together, I wanted to put this higher. But again, we only have 10.
Welcome to the club, man. We do it
Yeah, exactly.
every year.
It's not easy. It's not easy. It's an album. It's the Jane Getter Premonition. Anomalia is the name of the album. She's the wife of Adam Holzman, the keyboard player for Steven Wilson. And she wrote all the music to this. It's very melodic. There's instrumentals. She's got a really good voice. And there's a lot of guest stars on this. Stu Hamm, guests on bass, Vernon Reid, Alex Skolnick. plays on it. Chad Wackerman plays on a track or two. But really good songs. And Adam plays on this as well. And his keyboard style, immediately you can hear it. He's got that stabbing Rhodes on a bunch of the songs. There's a very Crimson-ish song on here, but there's a song called Answers, and she has a guest vocalist on that one. It's a female vocalist, Chadra Rule. I'm not familiar with her. The chorus is absolutely killer. It's beautiful. Great melodies on this record. There's a lot of good guitar playing on it, obviously with the guests that are there. She does two songs with Randy McStein where he sings. It's absolutely killer. And I know a lot of people probably don't know that name. I know she's playing in the city with Vernon Reid, I think in January, and they've done some shows in Boston too. But I love it. I think it's a great record, great melodies, a lot of prog influence in there, but a lot of guitar stuff too. So that's my number 9, Jane Getter Premonition.
Cool. I have not heard that.
Check that out.
All right, Stephen, back to you.
Well, my number 9 is one of those ones where you think, is it prog, is it not? Or I would have done up until this album, because I think that Dennis DeYoung's latest album, 26 East Vol 2, is his most prog, most Styx album for a long, long, long time. And I even think that Vol 1 I would have struggled to probably put in a prog list. It was prog-ish. It had those elements. You knew who it was. With Vol 2, he did say early on, even before the album was out, that he kind of back-weighted the best material for the second album, because if he sticks to his words, which I have every belief he probably will, this is his farewell. And he was determined to go out on a high. He didn't want to stink the place out on his last album, I think is roughly the quote. And I would say that he's definitely achieved way more than that, because I just think that it kind of hits heights and it hits notes that I hadn't anticipated ever hearing from him again. It's classic DeYoung. Yeah, it's a bit theatrical. For some people, it'll be a bit schmaltzy. That's always been his thing. I like him, I really do. And I'm just delighted to see him and hear him doing the kind of thing that I really want to hear him do. And if it is his last album, well, it'll put a smile on my face for a long time to come. So yeah, Dennis DeYoung, 26 East Vol 2 is my number 9.
Yeah, he went out with a bang, I would say.
I would say.
Definitely for me, it's the best of the two. So
I think by a distance, I like Vol 1.
yeah,
I think it's a strong record. But Vol 2 for me is head and shoulders above it. It really is. Start to finish, I don't think there's any weakness across it. And even after liking Vol 1, I had not anticipated being as impressed with Vol 2 as I have been.
Yeah, good stuff. Cool. All right, George, number 9.
Number 9 is Jeremy Green, Standing 8, Canadian guitar player, fusion guy. It's a mix of just a lot of blues influence. There's a couple of funk tunes with horn sections, a lot of straight fusion. Keith Carlock from Steely Dan is the drummer on all of it. Really good playing from him on here. I think he worked up all the songs with Jeremy. And it's a guest star palooza with the bass players, Billy Sheehan, Victor Wooten, Jimmy Haslip, and then you got some guest guitar players that he trades solos with, including Mike Stern, and Oz Noy, Michel Poussin from Uzeb. But these are the kind of releases, the guys that come out of nowhere you just love at the end of the year. You could add someone to your list, you know. Definitely one to check out. Jeremy Green, Standing 8.
Yeah, I was just listening to that in my car, as a matter of fact. That's a good one. And then let's not forget, God, there's one other legendary guy on that album. Oh man, I'm drawing a blank.
Will Lee is on it.
Will Lee is on it, and the
Will
guitar
Lee's
player.
on it.
Robin Ford.
That's
Robin
right.
Ford, that's right.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, he only plays on one track, unfortunately, but yeah, it's good
The
stuff.
only guy on more than one track is Oz Noy. He's on 2 tracks.
Yeah. And he's a really good guitar player.
Yeah.
Mr. Green is a really good player. And again,
Yes.
You're absolutely right. These guys have come out of nowhere and released these really classy, all-star, albums. And it's like, well, how did he get all these great guys to play on his album? Nobody knows who the hell he is, right? Well, they will know his name real soon, right? If they haven't already. So cool. All right, my number 9 is the second of a proposed prog rock concept trilogy based on a book that bassist and keyboard player and founding member Steve Babb is currently writing and set to release. It's the 19th album from Glasshammer, Hushton Grim, Into the Breach. And actually, for those following the career of Glasshammer, this album is probably the most unsounding Glasshammer album out of the entire catalog. It's heavy, it's ballsy, it's got lots of riffs, still lots of keyboards, still, you know, that is still there. But to me, this is like kind of like almost like a Rush album, like a big riffy, like late 70s Rush album. And I like it a lot. They have a new,
Really?
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. It's very heavy. There's even a track on there where they kind of like hint at some like old Black Sabbath riffs, kind of. It's like, it's crazy. It's
Wow.
It's really good. They got a new female singer who sings co-lead vocals with Steve Babb on the entire album. It's really good. It's really good. I think the lyrical content of this album, and again the story that they're telling, kind of has driven the music into heavier directions. Which, you know, for some people, I mean, you know, Glasshammer, we're doing all these great Yes sounding albums. In my opinion, they've done the best Yes albums that Yes hasn't done in the last 35, 40 years. But they're definitely kind of leaving that behind with these last 2 albums, and they're going to put out the third volume next year. So we'll see.
That's surprising because I remember the Dreaming City, right? And it started like promising, but then it quickly sort of lost that heavy gas.
Yeah, on here. Yeah. And what's interesting too, which started on the Dreaming City and even the album before, they started doing these like little like space rock interludes throughout the album. So now you got all this heavy material and that space rock kind of element. So it's a really interesting album. It's really, really different. So that's my number 9. It's definitely very, very cool album. So check it out.
I must admit that I'm still getting over my initial, who is this? With it, I put it on and kind of thought, have I put the right CD in? It really is in spots so far removed from what I've done previously that it was genuinely one of those moments where I thought, no, because obviously a different singer as well. I thought,
this is definitely not Glasshammer. Yeah,
I'll be honest and say I haven't quite broken through with it yet. Some of it really clicks.
It's a little jarring at first because you got it. It's a totally different mindset. Yeah, exactly.
I asked Steve. I said, Steve, what happened to Fred? He said he's playing guitar.
And there were plenty of keyboards on the album too, but it's a guitar album. It's
Fred's a little further back.
Yeah,
he's a little more.
But Fred's got playing all these big heavy riffs, and they got like a couple lead guitarists to come in and do this, you know, great crazy solos from time to time. It's a different Glasshammer album for sure.
I'm gonna have to buy it just to hear it now.
Yeah, you'll like it. It's really good.
You ever hear the Wizards album I put out with those guys?
Yeah, that's good. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that, but obviously, you know, a little more modern. But yeah,
a little more modern, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Where are we? Lewis.
All right. So I don't have props for my next 2. There, I'm choosing Tomahawk, Tonic, Immobility. That is a really, really strange, awesome record that it just appeared, and I bought it, and I can't stop listening to it. I'm a big Mike Patton fan, so I love that. I mean, he does John Zorn, you know, Mr. Bungle, Faith No More, whatever he does, it's always some real quality there. And Tonic Immobility is awesome. I love this record. It came out without much fanfare. I just got a suggestion that said, you may like this. I'm like, you are not wrong. And I bought it. But I don't have the prop, but I love that. I love that album. It's also at work. So
where would we be without recommendations, right? From social media and retail, right? God, imagine all the stuff.
It's so much material, right? That you sometimes do need some help. You need somebody to tell you, hey, based on what you bought before, you may be interested in this thing, right? Or, you know, you've been browsing this, so here's this ad for you.
Yeah.
Just from this show, Lewis, how many have you bought? I mean, I bought Special Providence because of you. I think I bought George has suggested a ton that I bought. I mean,
Hundreds.
That's what happens.
I'm not complaining. I'm
No,
just saying,
well, your wallet's
Your
complaining.
wallet hates you, but yeah.
well, there are worse ways that you can still spend the cash.
That's right.
True.
That's right.
So this way it's there forever, right? Unless you sit on it, which is a big problem in my case.
What do you think keeps
But
me?
otherwise, yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Ken.
All right, for my number 8, this one, I wasn't sure if I was going to put it on the list, and because I was keeping this all prog rock, and I guess I can get hate mail if anybody thinks this is not prog rock. Cynic, Ascension Codes. So I still can't figure out how to get the damn album.
There you go. You got it. Yeah.
There you go.
It's good.
I can't figure it out. So basically, Paul Masvidal, I guess he was at a crossroads because Sean Reiner passed away and Sean Malone passed away, and it was a question of what he was going to do. So he reconstructed the band. He brought in a keyboard player, Dave McKay, who also plays all the bass parts on keyboards. His new drummer, Matt Lynch, who does a very, very good job of basically replacing Sean Reiner, who was, was a ridiculous player. I mean, he was a monster. It has some of the old Cynic sound. You'll hear some of those vocoder elements popping up. The death metal stuff is pretty much gone. The death metal vocals are gone. But Paul's playing still has like a metallic feel. So, for me, it's kind of on the border. It's his tone. The whole album has this sort of like new age meets science fiction theme, but I think that's Paul's thing. It doesn't have the extreme intensity of the old Cynic albums. It's I maybe some of the edges are have been filed off, but it's still a very interesting album. And I enjoyed this one. This was my number 8, Cynic, Ascension Codes.
I have to admit, I resisted getting it or even listening to it just because I couldn't fathom Cynic without Sean Malone. It seemed weird to me.
Well, it's different, but it still sounds like Cynic when you say Pete.
I absolutely would.
You hear it and you think of Cynic, but maybe just not quite as maybe extreme. A little more prog rock and a little less prog metal.
It's more of a space rock album to me.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. It's got that new age. It's got a new age thing going on.
Still, you put it on. If you didn't, in other words, if I was wearing blinders, right, or a blindfold, and you put this on, didn't tell me what it was, I would know it's Cynic because it sounds like Cynic. It's just a little different, but it's really good.
So,
all right, that's something else to get.
Yeah.
No, you need it. You need it, Louis.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because my all-time favorite is Focus.
Sure.
First album was great. Yeah.
Everybody.
Just so good, right?
Yeah.
But that reunion album was great too.
Trace and Air was great.
Really good.
Yeah. I mean, a great album. I think I mentioned it, previously. I think I like it even more than Focus.
Yeah, it's close.
It's kind of cool when you see these bands like Liquid Tension. You see these guys get back together after all these years, and they make something great.
Yeah.
As opposed to these guys getting back together and they give you like a shitty Yes album.
Yes, indeed.
Fingers crossed for the Jethro Tull album in a month or so, right? So
I haven't heard it yet. I
heard the 2 songs and I like them. So
I like them both.
Yeah.
I'm buying it. I know that.
Oh yeah, it's an auto buy for sure.
Pre-ordered.
Yeah. All right, Eric, you're number 8.
My first thank you tonight to George for a recommendation, so I don't have to speak too much on this. It is also Standing 8 from Jeremy Green. And I think George and I George had sent me something about this and said, let's grab it. And it was an exchange that we had because I think George had sent me a couple things. So I said, let me pick this one up for you. There's nothing else that needs to be said. It's an amazing cast. The one thing I just want to say is that when you listen to Billy Sheehan's track that he plays on, his bass just roars. He just stands out to me on that track. And Oz Noy, I know we mentioned him before, the 2 tracks he plays on. I've got to get some Osnoy because he's fantastic on the Land of Oz. And I think something else was another track he played on, but that's my number 8, Jeremy Green, standing 8.
Yeah, you guys were like talking so highly about this, and then I went and ordered it the next day. So I think we all got them like within a couple of days of each other.
Right.
Yeah. Good album. Really good album. All right, Stephen, back to you.
Well, you've probably noticed my exit and return for a second or two. That's because in Scottish, I have done what we would call, I've made an arse of it, is what I've done, because I'm sitting here going, oh, shite, that is not on my list. The biggest problem being that we've started, so now 9 and 10 are in there, and this one has to come in somewhere, and I've got to take out something that's higher than 9 and 10. So what's coming out, I don't know yet. I haven't quite worked that out. I'm still staring at my list kind of going, no. So I don't quite know what we're going to do.
Come on, you know what you got to do.
You
know what you got to do. You got to pull a Pardo and just have a tie for number 8. Come on, it's not that hard. You can do it. Everybody gets a mulligan every now and then.
Okay, number 8 is these two then. So number 8 this is Cyan. Okay, so this is Rob Reid from Magenta, along with Luke Machin, who we know from lots of different projects, The Tangent and a variety of different things on guitar. Peter Jones, who does lots of things with Rob Reid on vocals, who's just fantastic on this album. And this is, Cyan was a really early band for Rob, and he's gone back and re-recorded for King and Country, which was their debut album, recorded in 1993. I'm not a fan of these ideas and going back and re-recording and reimagining and changing things around and saying this is what I always wanted it to sound like. Well, it should always have sounded like this, because this is just the absolute epitome of what Cyan should have always been. It's absolutely fantastic. It's just excellent. It fits perfectly into the current British prog revival that seems to be really continuing to gather, a lot of steam. And Rob is in it in a variety of different guises, and the Cyan album is definitely up there with some of his best. But it's also level with number 8, which is a band I mentioned last week. Okay, so this is the Scaramanga 6, and this is the marvelously titled Worthless Music. Okay, so this is the band's new album. It's only been out for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, so I've only been getting to know it. But it's just astoundingly good. It's diverse, it's catchy, it's challenging. It does a whole load of different things. There's a lot of humour involved in what they do, but they're also a band that's very capable of observational kind of things. And they're not frightened to just throw it all in there, mix it up, and see what comes out the other end. And I think if this had been released earlier in the year, it would have been higher than me making an arse of it, basically. So Worthless Music from Scaramanga 6 and For King and Country from Cyan are both number 8. Sorry.
I actually ordered that and the other ones from the last time you talked about.
Okay, good.
I went to their Bandcamp and I just bought them, but they haven't arrived yet, so I don't know, right?
I'm intrigued to see what you think, because I love them. I think they're great, and live they're outstanding.
Yeah.
So just for the record, Stephen has used his 1 mulligan for the month. So for anybody keeping track, you're allowed. You're allowed. Everybody's allowed one. George.
I'm probably less inclined to nostalgia than most people I know, but sometimes
Of course you are. You hated the Court of the Crimson King. So
a decade later, a lot of I was a huge fan of the whole Shrapnel era, Shredders albums and all that stuff. This Japanese band called Quadratum, Loud Playing Workshop, not a good title, not a good album art. Basically, it's Japanese power metal band Unlucky Morpheus. I don't know how it comes about, but the instrumentalists in that band decide we're going to do an instrumental album, and we're going to mine all the great instrumentals from that entire era. So they're doing Far Beyond the Sun by Yngwie, Dance of Eternity by Dream Theater, Into the Arena, MSG, hundreds of thousands, Tony McAlpine, Racer X Scarified, Steve I, For the Love of God, stuff like this. It's like I made the set list practically. It's just all the songs from my youth. And it's just, and being metal guys, they take pride in doing very authentic covers instead of improvising. But it still sounds different because one of the main instrumentalists in this band is a female violin player named Jill. And to hear the violin on all these tracks, it really gives it a spin. If you have any affection for this era of stuff, this is good.
I
Quadratic.
need to hear that.
That's a must buy. That is a must buy.
Is it George? Is it lead violin?
Yeah, she like on the songs where there's a keyboard solo and a guitar solo, she takes the guitar solo and the guitar player takes all the keyboard solos.
Wow.
It's definitely a different spin. But yeah, they did videos for like half the album and she is definitely the lead. She comes out, she's the leader.
I am sold.
And for everybody watching, we will list everybody's picks in the comments below. So I know everybody's going to want to go check some of this stuff out. So fear not, after the show airs, it'll be there. So look for it. It'll be pinned at the top. So yeah, I got to hear that one. That sounds like a must. All right. Not a lot more to say on this one than what Ken already said, but Cynic, Ascension Codes. Yeah, I dig this a lot. It sounds like a Cynic album to me. And I think it's definitely less metallic, like Ken said. It's definitely more atmospheric and trippy and proggy. To me, it sounds like a space rock album. There's some cool fusion-y guitar work, but that's like a staple of Cynics anyway. The vocoder vocals are here. It's yeah, I mean, just such a sad story, right? We lost both the Shawns last year, and but I give Paul credit for wanting to keep it going. And like I said, it sounds like a Cynic album. And I just really love it a lot. And I've listened to it a ton in the few weeks that I've had it. So that is my number 8.
You know what it is, Pete? I think everybody's expectations were kind of low, frankly.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
And then it came in, it was so strong that,
and without a lot of fanfare. Usually, every time, we've hardly had any Cynic albums since they reunited, right? Only a couple of them, and some EPs. So usually the year leading up to one, it was like a big deal, right? Oh, another Cynic album. But this one kind of just, here it is, it just appeared. And
you also, with Paul, you don't know what you're going to get because he does those other projects.
Yeah.
Was it like Aeon Spoke or something like that, where he does this sort of like pop, these sort of space pop or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So you really weren't sure what was going to happen. So,
yeah. But the band is good musicianship, but I like it. I think it's good.
Yeah.
So I was pleasantly surprised. So
yeah.
That's my number 8. Back to Lewis.
Okay. So next up, I have this guy, Liquid Tension Experiment 3. I think Ken pretty much summed it up. It is not their best record, but it's a damn good record, and it's Liquid Tension Experiment. So what's not to like, I actually almost prefer the improv stuff.
The improv is great. They're really great.
I really dig that because it's a little bit more flying by the seat of your pants. The other stuff, as Ken mentioned, some of it they even played live years and years ago, right? So it's not entirely new, but it's a very good record and unexpected because I don't have Pete's inside track on things, so I wasn't expecting this, and this just came out of nowhere, and I just bought it, right? So like, well, good job.
I will tell you, like, not even a half hour after that episode aired, George instant messaged me. He goes, "All right, what did he tell you off camera? Are they getting together to do another album?" And I'm like, "Nah, he was just, I totally shit you." I was like, I didn't even remember what story I gave you, but I was like, "Nah, nothing." He was just, didn't really want to talk about it. Like, yeah, right. Yeah, keeping that a secret was kind of difficult, but
I'm sure.
I promised him I wouldn't say anything. So, what I think is really cool about Liquid Tension for me is that, we know how those 3 dudes can absolutely shred, but to hear the older guy, Tony Levin, keeping up with all of them, and he's such a monster player, and you don't normally hear him in that sort of a zone. And I love hearing Tony just rip with reckless abandon right alongside those dudes. I think that's just so cool to see and hear.
I mean, to be fair, nobody in that band is a fucking spring chicken.
No.
But Tony's got a little
Tony
distance.
11 is getting on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're all like my age, and Tony is, I mean,
Yeah,
Tony's
yeah.
what, 70?
Yeah.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, Tony's up there.
He's got a few
That's the
miles on
thing.
him.
Yeah.
You know, when you give Tony his stick, he's just jamming like nobody's business.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Great
and
stuff.
then the funk fingers,
Yeah.
it's a cool little device, you
The
know.
chopsticks.
Yeah, the chopsticks with tape. But it's a brilliant idea if you want to get that sharp attack and just like go fast, you know. This is why he's fucking Tony 11.
That's right. That's right. Very cool. All right, Ken, back to you.
All right, this one's a little bit out of left field. So for number 7, this was a band that I got turned on to, and frankly, we couldn't keep it in stock. It's a British band called Fragile. And I think, Pete, I told you about them the other day.
Yep.
So they started out as, and I believe they still are, like the top Yes cover band from the United Kingdom.
Oh, okay.
They have Claire Hamill on vocals. This is their second album. And I guess it's kind of like a modern day version of that old band Druid. I mean, it sounds so much like Yes that it's almost like the album was written with tracing paper. It's just 3 epic. There's a 22-minute track, 14 and a half, and a 14-minute track. And just the guitar tone, everything, it sounds just like classic Yes, vintage Yes. And Claire Hamill, she's been around forever. She's always sort of skirted on the fringe of the prog scene. She's worked with Wishbone Ash, John Anderson, all different people. I don't think there's any connection to Peter Hamill. And she's a solid singer, and she kind of, in a way, she kind of emulates John Anderson. And both albums are excellent. You know, I'm not going to tell you this is the most original thing, but I got to tell you, it was like a guilty pleasure. It was a lot of fun to listen to this album. I really.
You have any more of those in stock?
I actually do. I have one copy of the first one, and I got I don't know, about 5 or 6 of this one left. This one's called Beyond. This is the second album. I recommend it. You like Yes?
Put one aside for me. I'll order it after we get off this.
Okay.
As always. Seems I'm doing that every week.
It's just one of those things, man. It scratches that itch, you know, and there are parts of it where you could forget you're not listening to Yes. So.
And George, don't think I didn't see that look on your face when he started talking about Fragile, and you were like, "Wait a second,
Yeah.
name infringement there." My Japanese band, come on.
Yeah.
Let's do that. All right, Eric, back to you.
So my number 7 surprised me. This is one I reviewed for the website. And I've seen this guy perform, I want to say 8, maybe 9 times. And I'm going to see him again this spring. It's Nad Sylvan, Spiritus Mundi. And it's a gorgeous record. And speaking of Tony Levin plays on a number of tracks. Steve Hackett does appear on one track. But in reading the liner notes, he calls it his Cat Stevens record. And it actually kind of has that feel. It's folky in a way. You feel like you're being told a story, but it's really lush and beautiful. It's orchestrated very well. There's a ton of acoustic guitar on this record. I gotta say, I mean, I've really liked him with Steve as a frontman. And I think I had heard Courting the Widow, but I don't think I'd heard anything else by him. But I was really impressed with this. I listened to this a lot after I reviewed it. So this stayed in rotation for me. So it's Nad Sylvan, Spiritus Mundi. That's my number 7.
Yeah, his solo albums are generally pretty good.
I know he had he was kind of in a metal band, or was there a band he was in before he hooked up with Steve that was more of a
what was it called? I used to sell it. I don't remember.
Yeah, I forget the name of the band. They wouldn't call them a metal band, but they were more.
Okay.
No, they were. It was a duo. It was him and another guy, and it was a prog rock thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
I thought I'd heard it was heavy. He did something heavier, but
Well, it's definitely
No,
more rocking than that.
There's something called the internet, and let's see what they have to say. Uniform. Yeah, that was the name of the band.
Okay.
Uniform.
That's good stuff too. Uniform is really good.
Yeah, it was him and I think another guy, Bonamici, a keyboard player.
Okay.
Yeah, it was at the time. Actually, I sorry to interject, but at the time, I remember when when Uniform came out, the big thing was how much they sounded like Genesis, actually, because he sounded so much like, you know, how he's sort of in between Gabriel and Collins. At times, he's a little bit of a vocal chameleon,
Right.
and he was, you know, and he was out self-promoting Uniform, and they were getting a lot of traction because he really captured that sound, and they had a lot of that Genesis flavor.
Okay.
So I think that's what probably caught the attention of Steve
sure.
Hackett.
Yeah.
You know, that's what got him the gig.
Yeah. He does a great job in Hackett's band, I think. It's always good to hear him there. Cool. All right. Steven, back to you.
So, if there was anything more surprising than my number 9, which is now my number 10, which was Dennis DeYoung suddenly sounding like Styx, then it was Styx suddenly sounding like Styx. So this is Crash of the Crown. Now, if Mission was a surprise, then Crash of the Crown is a revelation, because with the Mission, they suddenly became much more progressive, probably more progressive than I think they've ever been. And it's an excellent album, and I really like it. And there were elements where you thought, yeah, that sticks. And elements where you thought, nah, it's really good, but it isn't really them. Not a complaint. It's an excellent album. And they seem to have just kind of managed to kind of combine what was there with what made the name on this album. And I didn't see that coming either. So it's been, for a Styx fan, it's been an absolute vintage year. And who thought 2021 would ever see that? Because there was a period for Styx, and I don't mind some of the fallow years, but there was a period where you kind of thought, I think we're done as a recording act, really. And then they said they were done as a recording act, and they were doing all kinds of cover albums and live with symphonies, and some of those are fun, some of them are not. To really kind of see the resurgence that's come back through, and I think the enthusiasm that's come back through on this, because this doesn't feel hackneyed in any way. It doesn't feel like a band that thinks, well, do you know what? If we go back to that classic sound, people will like us again. This feels really genuine. It feels like it's there for all the right reasons. And I could walk off camera again because I'm really stupid, because there was also a record store day release that came out that's got another couple of tracks on it that aren't on this, and they're just as good. So suddenly it's a band that have just found their stride again. And long may it continue. More, please. More new albums, and can they sound like this? So that's Styx, Crash the Crown is my number 7.
More on that later. George.
My number 7 is from a Brazilian bass player, Fernando Molinari, Reaching Inside. It's his 3rd album. It's all instrumental, kind of straddles the line between prog and fusion. There's some heavy tracks, some more fusion-y tracks, Latin tune even on here. It's got Marco Miniman on drums for most of the record. Very well produced, mixture all over the place as far as tempos and aggression, but there's videos of the better songs on the record, like Desert Flower and Control. Those are both on YouTube if people want to check them out. But super nice guy. I can't go too into depth because it just came out on December 10th, and I've been listening to the crap out of it, but not as well versed as I could be. But definitely check it out. Fernando Molinari, Reaching Inside.
Just came out. Wow. I'm talking about getting into the last minute, the 11th hour. Kind of like, well, it's kind of like this for me. I mean, this album on my next pick, number 7, has been out since I think March or something like that, but I just never checked it out. I've had people recommend it to me all year, and finally, like a month ago, it's like, all right, I gotta see what everybody's talking about here. It's the new album. I believe it's the debut from Norwegian act Caligonaut, magnified as Giants.
Yes.
Bring a couple guys from Wobbler, and yeah, this is quite good. 4 tracks. It's on Apollyon Records. Definitely prog. I mean, I would say, obviously, most bands that are playing progressive rock these days from Norway are going to get compared to Wobbler. And even though you got two guys from Wobbler who appear on this album, I don't think the album sounds that Wobbler-ish, whereas Wobbler really, really goes for that retro 70s symphonic prog thing. I mean, there's plenty of that on here, but this is a little more pastoral in spots, I think, but still it's got that epic feel. Great keyboards, great guitars. The vocals are really well done. I like the long instrumental passages, and I dig it. It's one of those albums that the more I listen to it, the more I like it. And it wasn't going to make my list originally, but I've been listening to it so much in recent weeks. I was like, well, I really do like this quite a bit. I got to figure out a way to sneak it on my list at the 11th hour, and I did. So yeah, Magnified as Giants by Kaligonaut. If you haven't checked it out, it's a good one from Norway. So back to Lewis.
All right. My number 6 is an album that I really, really liked a lot. I think it sounds different from their previous records. It's a very good record. I'm talking about Aziola Cry, The Ironic Divide. There's a magical Hebrew in Jersey who puts this out, and he does a great job. It's on the Sensory label, and I would highly recommend people who like instrumental heavy prog metal or prog music to give this a spin. It's also not a supremely long record, but it's very, very well composed, especially the title track, and it's just a really good record. I can't say enough good things about it. The sound is different from when I saw them live many years ago, Chicago, but it's only improved. And I think the drummer Tommy Murray is just a beast. So he does a fantastic job with this thing. So Aziola Cry, The Ironic Divide.
Good, like moody, riffy,
Dark, yeah, but it's yeah. I mean, the tool comparisons are too easy just because of the drums.
I think like the riffs sound more like Fate's Warning to me.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So the music is different, but the attack, it's as if Danny Carey joined a different band.
Yeah,
it kind of feels like that to me, but it's a great record.
And what's interesting about that album? It's like you listen to it and it's all instrumental, but I almost think some of those songs would even work with vocals. Like you have to wonder if at some point down the road they may decide to say, hey, let's give it a try. Because I think those songs could house some vocals in them. I think, and they'd be fine. Just as instrumentals and fine with vocals. It's just, sometimes you listen to, like, you're not going to listen to Liquid Tension Experiment and think, oh yeah, we're going to put vocals on that. There's no way.
No.
But the Aziola Cry album, you listen to it, you're like, all right, I can see that song having vocals.
There's some space in there.
Yeah.
But that I think that is the strength of it.
If you have a chance, go on YouTube. The guys put up some fantastic videos, animated videos that accompany the music. I think it's worth watching.
Yes. And Jason, I don't know if you're watching, but he's a very, very cool cat, and he's really, we're going to be doing some shows with him next year, and I'm looking forward to that because it's going to be fun.
The only reason I left it off the list was because I kept this a prog rock only list for me. Otherwise,
Yeah.
And also people who complain about nepotism and things like that. So
yeah, but they can't complain about that with me.
no,
Fuck 'em.
no, for what I pay you to put them on the list. Thank you. I thought they would be a little higher, frankly, but
Oops, I thought we weren't supposed to divulge that little bit of information.
Yeah, an old tortilla and a pinch of salt. That's what you get, man.
If I would have thrown in a little hot sauce, maybe they would have been number 2. But all right,
you went. Yeah, I didn't get the sauce.
yeah,
There you go.
I always screw up.
All right. What's your next pick, Ken?
So my next pick, Big Train, Common Ground. So maybe a bad comparison, no insult, but for me, they're kind of like the prog rock version of Comfort Food. It's like, I don't think they break any new ground with Common Ground, but it demonstrates what the band does, best. It's pretty traditional sounding British progressive rock. It has this pastoral feel. It's like it tells a story. Great vocals from the now late David Logden. There's a lot of old school vintage sounds embedded in there, but you don't feel like you're listening to a 70s album. And I guess the only thing is with them is I think they kind of hit a peak with English Electric. So I would rank this below that, but it just shows you what a strong band they are, because I think that this is, an excellent album. I know they have the last album with David is coming out in late January. I'm looking forward to hearing it. So
It's quite good. It's quite
number
good.
6, Big Train, Common Ground.
Yeah, it's a good album. It's in my honorable mentions. I like it a lot. And the one coming out in January is really good too. So
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know the right people to ask to hear.
Oh, just that's the band.
Oh shit.
All right, Eric.
Well, this one I got from you, Pete, my number 6. It was a review you did on the site for YouTube. And it's basically flute, and more flute. And it's a Gusa. I'll say this wrong, I'm sure. And on a World, 2 20-minute plus tracks. Like I said, tons of flute on this. It like Ken had said, this has a very retro. This is a 70s sounding record to me, the way the production is. And I love the way they build everything up. And again, you're talking about 2 20-minute tracks. So the songs will slowly build, and all of a sudden it completely deconstructs. And it might be back down to an acoustic guitar and flute again, builds back up. Very pastoral in spots, but the band does get cranking every once in a while. And I think the second track, to me, it's almost trance-like as it starts. Maybe the first 6 or 7 minutes, very slow to get going, but I love that sound. It's got that really pastoral flute, but the band can kick in and rock a little bit, and then they kind of fall back into that more acoustic, way with just the flutes and the acoustic guitars. But that was one you did the review on, and I think I ordered that immediately after you were done. So that's my number 6.
It's great. What's excellent too? You only have the 2 tracks. They're both like 20+ minutes, and
Yep.
neither one of the 2 tracks sound at all like the other one.
No, completely different.
Yeah. That band's great. Every album they've done is a home run.
That's a near fest band.
Yeah.
Right.
If there was a near fest,
Yeah.
we'd be seeing a Goose.
Yep. People will be going nuts with all the Mellotron and the acoustic guitars, and it's absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I see. I can see into my crystal ball. Agusa at Nearfest in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania would be like the second coming of Angligard, right? Because that's how
Right.
people would go nuts over them. Yeah.
What about an SOT fest?
You got the money. Come
I'll put
on.
more work. I'm going to put more work on you, Pete.
All that free time you've got, Peter.
I'm keeping my mouth shut now for a reason. So.
Does the chance still exist? You could do it at the
Oh yeah,
chance.
yeah, it does. Yeah, I don't know if that's a good place for it, but anyway.
More about that much later, I think.
Much later, yes. Back to Stephen.
Oh, well, my thunder's just been stolen because my number 6 is, and I don't have a prop yet, is Agusa in an Untitled. It's all just been said. It's a recent discovery for me, funnily enough, because of the channel. I knew nothing about this band at all, and this is my starting point, and I intend to go and buy it all because I've been really blown away by it. It is current, but it's vintage. It feels really organic. I would be tempted to buy it on vinyl because it feels like a vinyl album. It's got that kind of atmosphere. The only thing that would maybe stop me is that side 2 has so many false ends that I would get up to change the side.
Vinyl sounds very good.
Yeah, it feels like a vinyl album to me in that sense. It's got that atmosphere. It's got that feel. I probably will buy it on vinyl. In actual fact, for those reasons, it feels like it would benefit from the mythical warmth, which I am a believer in. I have to say. I buy a mix of both. Tends to be mainly CD these days, more for cost than anything else, because it means I can buy more albums rather than fewer. So, but there are some that I think, yeah, that's a vinyl purchase, and I think that the latest album from Agusa, for me personally, will be a vinyl purchase, but it'll be a purchase one way or another because it's just stunningly good. So yeah, another one to quote what was already said before me too, I would love to put it higher up the list, but I just can't quite get it any higher. Fantastic stuff.
And Stephen, I'm the same. I bought it because of Pete's review, and now I'm sure I'll go get the others because it's that good.
Yeah, absolutely blown away by it.
Good catalog.
I did this second and third. The second one's out of print. The third, I still have inventory on. Yeah, I'm sure you could find copies of the second floating around. So the first one, Hogtid, is probably the hardest one to find.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
And the live albums, they have a lot of great live albums. So
Yeah, they sound like a band that would be phenomenal to see live.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah,
transport somewhere else.
Cool.
Your fest band.
Your fest band. Yes. All right, George.
Number 6 from Norway, Terra Odium, an A+ Ultra. People like me that have the Spiral Architect one and only album on their Desert Island list. Anything with a sniff of Architect, it gets my interest. This has the singer and the drummer. People expecting Architect will be disappointed. It's not tech metal at all. It's just prog metal. But me, I listened to Oyvind sing the phone book, so I was all in. Asker, I don't think Asker plays drums as much as he used to. He's doing a lot of production, but he sounds great. I think drums could stand to be a touch louder, but yeah, the songwriter is the guy Oyvind was in Manitow with before Spiral Architect. But the songs still have an Architect vibe, even though he was not a writer for Architect. You won't feel like you're totally disconnected, but it's weird. It's in the middle. It'll remind you of it, but don't go into it expecting tech metal because that's not what you're going to get. But very consistent record. They got a guy doing orchestral patches on the keyboards, not a soloist, just a guy doing orchestra sounds. But great stuff. If you like Architect, you got to get it.
Great.
I think the keyboard, Pete, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I think the keyboard player really made a big difference because he was adding that sort of textural element that, you didn't really get with like a Spiral Architect.
Yeah.
Yeah, vocals are outstanding. I like all the melodies, and the guitar work is just incredible, even though it's not super, super technical, but still it's technical enough, right, to satisfy that itch for something like that. Yeah, it's a great album. What are we? This is number 6? Yeah, number 6, right? Liquid Tension Experiment, number 3. We've already had this show up a couple times, so not more need to be said. I like this a lot. Like Ken said, it sounds like there was no however many years in between the last one, just picked right up where they left off. It's killer. I dig the improvs quite a bit as well. Songs are memorable. The playing is outstanding. That's my number 6, LTE 3. Back to Lewis.
All right. My number 5 is going to be a band called Leprous and an album that they called Aphelion, I believe. Yes. Very, very, very much astronomical. I love this record. I mean, if you need to know anything about it, just play the opening track. It has an absolutely face-melting cello solo. And it's not face-melting because it's shreddy. It's just face-melting because it's that well composed and that well put together. That it's just incredible, right? So these guys, I have seen them live once, I believe, in Chicago. I didn't connect with their show for whatever reason. It just left me. But when I heard this record, I was blown away by it. And I have many of their other albums, and I like the albums. I just didn't like them. They were probably having an off night. But I would, if anybody saw them that night and thought, yeah, I would invite you to reconsider and give a listen to Aphelion. This is really a fantastic album by Leprous. I mean, some people might say it is kind of prog metal, but it's really proggy. It's interesting. They have their own thing going. So I like it.
Some of their earlier stuff, Lewis, because I've heard quite a bit of their stuff. Really like it, but never quite been blown away. Does it raise the bar?
For me, this is my favorite record that they've done.
Okay.
For
Steve,
me,
I wouldn't say it raises the bar. For me personally, I think it's a return to form. because
Okay.
I did not like Pitfalls.
I didn't like their last two, actually. I
Yeah.
like the
Lena.
other two.
You know, I put out what technically was their second album because their first album was, you call it a demo or first album that was never released. But I put out Tall Poppy Syndrome,
Yes.
and probably
Yes. I like that.
maybe my favorite for personal reasons. But this to me has the strings on it, just adds another dimension to the band sound. There's more texture to it. It was originally on my list, but then when I went all prog rock, I took it off.
Yeah.
I think it's, you know, I've seen them, well, they're friends of mine, and I've seen them 3 or 4 times. You know, they're an incredible live band if you ever get a chance to see them play.
Very professional. This is no question.
Oh, they're tight. I mean,
Yeah. I don't, like I said, I don't know why I wasn't feeling it that night when I saw them, but I
Yeah.
would say if anybody who was in Chicago who saw them, I thought, no, like really.
But
give them a
you're
shot.
right, Louis. You're right. That first track is a killer,
Yes.
and then for me, it's the strings that just adds that other dimension to the band. I think it's a superb album. And yeah,
I'm
Pete,
intrigued then.
I'm with you. You know, I love Tall Poppy Syndrome. I thought Bilateral was phenomenal, and then they sort of lost it a little bit. And
Yeah.
I think they got their mojo back on this one.
I thought the last album was pretty bland, and it just like didn't excite me enough. So I'm happy to hear that this is. I got to go check it out because I really liked the first couple.
Yeah, this is a good record.
The last couple I liked, but not enough to go back to. You put them on and you thought, yeah, this is good. And then quickly kind of forgot about them, or I did anyway. So I must admit that this one's passed me by for those reasons. So it looks like I'm wrong, which is good.
If you could dig up Tall Poppy Syndrome, you should check that out. It even has Mellotron on it. It's got, to me, it always had like I always heard like elements of like Van de Graaff Generator in there. So
Yeah, that's actually,
I know.
that's right.
Big for Eric. Eric would love it, but you know.
A lot better singer.
Come on.
Steinhardt's great.
You know, it's crazy. That first album I mentioned that never got released, there's a lot of good material in there. I'm surprised that either the band or Inside Out hasn't done anything with it.
The band was selling it on their website for a while.
Aeolian?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I turned it down.
It's good, but it's embryonic. You can hear it.
Yeah, they hit off, they wanted to sign with me and I turned it down. And then they came back with Tall Poppy Syndrome and it's on. And nobody bought the album.
Really?
Stiff, terrible.
Hard
And
copies
then-
of that now.
And then when they went to, and then they wanted to put out another album, and I said, guys, this album didn't sell. I can't afford to do another album. And then they wound up with Inside Out, and then Inside Out did very well with them. And then all my sales of Tall Poppy Syndrome took off. I rode the coattails of Bilateral. It's truth. I mean,
Chance of you got, eh?
yeah. I think they were just a band that was just like in a way ahead of their time.
Yeah. Well, initially they had a lot of buzz because they were like kind of like the backing band for Isan, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was going to give them the instant rub, and it kind of didn't, right? Like everybody thought it would. So
Yeah.
All right, Eric, back to you.
Hey, my number 5, this guy has done sideman work, studio work, film and TV scores. I'm going with Lyle Workman, Uncommon Measures. It's a different listen because his playing is phenomenal. I mean, his phrasing, when he's playing guitar leads, I love his work. It's just, you listen to it and one of the songs you could almost say like, I could hear this in a TV show. Then he's got an orchestra in another song. And then he's got a flat out proggy or more of a hard rock piece in there. So it's kind of a quirky listen. It's not a comfortable record to listen. There's a lot of different things going on within the songs, and the songs themselves are very different from each other at times, but it's so good. The music is so good. He's such a good writer, such a good player. So that's my number 5, Lyle Workman, Uncommon Measures.
Good choice. Yeah, it's a fun album. Good stuff. A lot of variety. All right, Stephen.
Well, my number 5 is maybe my most indulgent or self-indulgent choice because it's arguably the least prog on my list, but I want to talk about it, so here it is. And it also should tick all the boxes of what I don't like, because I don't like duos as a rule. I don't like these two-piece fad things that kind of came through for a period. I blame the White Stripes for that. And it seemed for a while that you went to see your favourite band or whoever it may be, and the opening act was just some guy behind a drum kit. And somebody wailed with a guitar at the front because that was just in. So I must admit that until now, I have completely ignored Crown Lands. Okay, they're Canadian band. The EP, so it's not even an album, it's called White Buffalo. It is over half an hour long. It's got 4 tracks. And if you want to kind of take a bit of Zeppelin and ram it headlong into Early Rush, then that's what you've got. There's a bit of buzz around them, and as I say, there's a bit of buzz, and they're a two-piece, and they're just playing a retro sound that you can find anywhere. It's one of those things that I should run in the other direction from. And I don't know why. I gave it a go. I don't have a physical copy yet because it's been delayed. The actual manufacture of the CD has been delayed. It should have been here by now. It's going to be next year. I just have been blown away by it. I keep playing it. There's only 4 songs, but they're all quite lengthy. They're all intricate. The vocalist, which is also the drummer, is Cody Bowles. And there's kind of, he doesn't sound like Geddy Lee, but there's that high-pitched thing that I know that some people are going to hate, and I really quite like. And they just have a real energy and a real authenticity around them that right from the first listen, I thought, oh, okay, there's something real happening here. And the more I hear it, the more I believe that there's something real happening here. So they've also just released a live in the studio album, which they kept pure. They put out no overdubs on it. They just said, you know what, that was the way it was done before. This is raw, and there are a couple of bum notes. There are a couple of soaring vocals that don't quite soar. Man, oh man, it's good, but it's not quite as good as White Buffalo. So that's the EP by Crown Lands. Love it.
Yeah, they're pretty talented. There is a lot of buzz about them these days. So it kind of reminds me when Greta Van Fleet first hit the scene, right? It's like young band.
I think they're a little less blatant than Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah. They seem to be trying to do a little bit of their own thing. However, all of their own thing is completely pulled from somewhere else.
Yep. Cool. All right, George.
Mr. Porter said, Lyle Workman, West Coast soundtrack guy, 4th album. For me, the other albums are Peaks and Valleys albums. The good songs are really good, but then there's some songs I could take or leave. Puts it all together on this one, and it's a mixture of progressive music, soundtracky stuff, fusion, prog rock. Good player, but not a guy out to blow you away. Just really good songwriting. Everybody check it out.
Yeah, it's definitely not like Look at Me, I'm the Guitar Player Guy album, right? I'm sure if he did an album like that, we'd all be like completely blown away. But I think him doing his thing is really cool. It's just really different. My number 5 has already been discussed. Agusa and Ananvald, I guess that's how they say it. 2 tracks, all great. Acoustic guitars, electric guitar, mellotron, lots of flute. Yeah, I love it. This is amazing. We've already talked about it, so we'll go on to Lewis. But yeah, if you haven't heard this latest Agusa or any of their other albums, check them out. They're an amazing band. Sweden is the place to be. All right, Mr. Nasser, back to you.
Okie doke. For me, my number 4 comes from France. These guys are metal / prog metal. I've always loved all the records, starting with, all of them have been different, but great. Talking about Gogeta. Let me take it out of the case so there's less glare.
Is this number 4 or number 5? I'm lost.
This is my number 4.
4.
Fortitude by Gogeta. I love these guys. If people don't know this band, you can go to YouTube. They have a live at Red Rocks that is just so kick-ass mixed, and it's just great. So you go check them out. They have a consistent message about sustainability and trying not to fucking destroy the earth, which is something that I respect and I sympathize with. So that certainly has an effect on me wanting to hear more what they do. But they're just such brilliant musicians that they just put it together really well. And you should check them out. They're young and they're doing cool stuff. So youngish, right? They're
Youngish,
30s.
yeah.
So yeah, they're not Greta Van Fleet, but they're a very good band. I very highly enjoy all they do. So
They're a force to be reckoned with live. I like how they combine like technical precision with amazing grooves. And just like weird little sounds that they do every now and then, which are complete. I mean, nobody sounds like them, right?
No.
Yeah.
I saw them many years ago, actually, not here when they came to the House of Blues, which is not my favorite concert venue at all in Chicago. It's got some really, really shitty sound and sightlines, but it is they were just phenomenal at that show.
Yeah,
So,
I
I
saw
haven't
them.
heard
They
that
opened,
yeah.
they opened for, strangely enough, I think it was Volbeat and Alter Bridge, which is an odd bill. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. I can see the faces in the room, and they played in the Hydro in Glasgow, which is as near as we get to an Enormodome, and they absolutely bulldozed the place. They were outstandingly good.
Yes.
Outstandingly good.
Brilliant band. I love them.
I got to hear that one. I'm behind on my Gojira stuff. All right, Ken.
So I don't want to rock the boat here, but this is my number 5.
We have been over this before, Ken.
Might want to check
No.
again, Ken.
But hey, it's Steven that had 2 number 8s.
But that doesn't mean you have to forget one.
Wait,
I'm-
I just want to run those.
but
I
my
had a quarter
next
V,
pick is
I
still
did
number
a quarter
4.
V contrary, liquid tension, cynic, fragile, big train. That's 5.
I got 4 left.
I got
Yeah.
4
We
left.
must have skipped you.
Well,
What
my number
was your
5.
What was your number 5?
I'm doing it now.
You're doing it now, so you're going.
So do your 4, do your 5 and your number 4.
Yeah.
Very good. So my number 5 is Asia Minor. It's called Points of Libration. I have a feeling it was supposed to be Points of Liberation, and somebody made a bad typo. They are a French Turkish band. They made 2 albums, and this is their first album in 41 years. They reunited, and they kept their sound intact. They're not like a Gusa really, but they are a flute-based symphonic rock band with a bit of darkness in their sound. They sound like something out of like the old, if you guys are familiar with like the crypto label, the French crypto label from the 70s, with bands like Metabolism and Carpe Diem. So it's very much like their first album. And it has like a very, very strong flavor of Camel. I think it's good shit. So I highly recommend it. That was my number 5. And I will segue into my number 4. So my number 4 is the second album from Shamble Mass. And Shamble Mass is they are a Norwegian duo led by Simon Elligson. He was a college professor, if I recall. He plays everything but the drums. The music, it's very, very hard to describe. It's prog rock. It has a modern feel, but there's a lot of old school elements. There's lots of mellotron turning up. It's kind of chaotic in a way. It's like you took Van de Graaff Generator, King Crimson, and maybe John Coltrane, and you threw it in a blender and you set it on high. And then somehow it just becomes this cohesive and involving thing. It's a bit different than their first album, but it still sounds like Shamble Mass. They're a different band. Long tracks, 18-minute track on here. This is the good shit, man. You want this?
I think
Am I caught up now?
someone's been shuffling their list over the last couple of days because I think you told me that might be your number one.
Well, it just tells you how good my 3, 2, and 1 are, man. And
I guess so, right?
if you don't skip me, you'll find out.
And now we're gonna have to rewatch this episode after it airs and find out how the hell this happened because
And some guy in the comments is gonna say, that Ken, he's a schmuck. He can't count.
we'll find out. We'll get to the bottom of this. That's the big
All right.
mystery of today. All right, Eric, what do you got for number 4?
So my number 4, Pete, you sent this one to me to review, and I got it as a file. I love this band so much. I went to their band camp and bought it. And I did have a back and forth with band members a few times. It's a trio instrumental. The guitar player is absolutely phenomenal. Very clean tones, a lot of tapping, a ton of technique from this guy, but the other two, the drummer and the bass player, also great players. The band is Immobility, and it's Multiple Personalities is the name of the disc. It's probably the one thing I heard this year that I got to review that immediately blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. Had never heard of them before. I think from talking to them and reading about this, they've been together close to 10 years, but this is the first thing I think they've released as a full-length recording. So just check it out. There's some videos on YouTube. And I don't even know how to describe the music. The guitar player, he plays with a very clean tone, a lot of delay, but I can't speak highly enough of these guys, and it absolutely blew me
What's
away,
the
and I'm
name?
still listening to it. The band's name is Immobility.
Coevality.
Yep.
Okay.
Multiple Personalities, Coevality.
It was early in the year, right?
I want to say May. I think I started writing for Pete like in March, and it might have been April, May that I got the files.
I forgot
But
about
I
that. Yeah.
I had to buy it.
Sell or sold it. Yeah, it was a good record. Forgot about it.
All right, Stephen.
Well, my number 4 is a UK band. It's their 6th album, and also it would appear to be their final album, which they announced as they released it. This is Aeon Zen, and the album is Transversal. I say album, there's been a little bit of complaint from certain people that it's not very long. No, it's not very long, but I don't really care because it's bloody good. So what difference does it make? It's one song, and it does fall in round about the half-hour mark. So you could call it another EP, but the band are calling it an album. I'll take it as an album. It pulls from everything that they've done before, but it's undoubtedly, for me, I go as far as to say Head and Shoulders are the best thing they've done. So it makes it really disappointing that they've decided that that's it. And if you want to give it a go and watch the video of them that they've kind of pieced together doing the tracking on YouTube. And it's a joy to watch just the way that they've weaved it all together. It's kind of prog rock. There's a lot of prog metal in there too. It's catchy, but it's technical. There are a few growls in there, so if you're frightened of the growls, put your fingers in your ears for a couple of seconds, because the rest of it's worth it. It's really good, and I do think the whole catalogue is worth going. I think they get better as they go along, so it makes sense that the final album is going to be the best album. But I am really, really sorry to see them go. This is Aeon Zen, and it's Transversal. It's my number 4. It's excellent.
Yeah, good band. Good band.
Yep.
All right, George.
Number 4 is a new band from Germany called Marriage Material. This is
Marriage Material.
yeah,
It's a great. It's either a horrible name or a great name. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's not good, but I don't know. Doesn't really matter. It's a really good band. The only guy I knew before was the drummer Felix Lerman. He's been in Flower Kings in recent years, and he had a solo album like 10 years ago I got from you, Ken. It's with another weird name, Felix Lerman's Rim Job. Bad visuals with that.
I just sell them, man. I don't name them.
That was really good record, and this is really good too. It's a quartet. It stands out because the fourth guy, instead of keyboards, he's a vibes player, really good vibes player. I love vibes on records, and he's really good. It's a mixture of all kinds of stuff, infusion, but everything's good. If I had a beef, it's just got interlude-itis. There's like 5 interludes on here. It's just a minute and change of, some ambient noise, and some producer decided to turn it down and make it sound like it was recorded in the next room. That just annoys the crap out of me. But the actual songs on this, it's great. Really good stuff. Marriage material.
Remember how you used to go to a video store and they had the back room with all the XXX movies? So George would come to my website and he would go to the 18 and over section of the website and he'd find Rim Job.
Rim Job.
I'm just hearing that name and thinking so many bad last paragraph reviews. Do you know? It's just the flavor this album leaves.
Good job. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
All right, my number, what are we on? Number 4, right? Yeah, number 4. This is Stephen Reid's favorite band of all time. Neil Morris Band, Innocence in Danger. Double album.
Yeah.
Gone yet.
Yeah, I know, right? You've listened to this more than any other album this year, right? I mean, high quality stuff from these guys. This, to me, this is what I want Neil Morris to be doing, stuff like this. I mean, this is big, bombastic, complex, progressive rock, bordering on metal through most of the album. And I've really liked their last couple albums together. It seems like they're cranking them out at like record pace. It's amazing, like the creativity here. But, Mike Portnoy's getting his fill of big, heavy, bombastic, epic, progressive rock and metal with these guys. I mean, what a year. I mean, Transatlantic, Liquid Tension, Neil Morris Band. I mean, Jesus, that's quite the resume for the year. But everything I love about these guys, the songwriting's great, memorable melodies, killer drumming and guitar playing and keyboard playing, and the whole 9 yards. It's big, it's epic. I dig it. So Neil Morris Band, Innocence in Danger is my number 4. Back to Lewis.
Okay. I'll ask you later about that album because I have some questions. But,
Okay.
My number 3 is a record that I really loved. These guys, the last couple hadn't really done it for me that much, but I think they hit their peak with Crack the Sky, talking about Mastodon. But this record I think is really, really brilliant. It's called Hushton Grim. It's a double record, double CD, so that's a lot of music to digest, right? I believe they really managed to keep it interesting most of the way through to excellent, right? And the lyrics are, I mean, the whole record is sort of has a funeral vibe to it in a way, I guess. I think I saw an interview with Troy Sanders on YouTube where he's talking about how they lost this manager who'd been with them from the beginning, who was a very pivotal member of how they did their business basically and their music. So they all had to kind of come together and it's sort of their way to deal with this loss, but it's also a really beautiful, powerful musical statement. So I love this record when it came out, and I still listen to it, ever since. So Hushton Grim, Mastodon.
It's quite good. I think it was kind of ballsy of them to do a double album because it's not really their sort of thing. I think the first disc is amazing. I think every song is tremendous. I think it loses a little bit of steam on disc 2, just a little. I think for me,
Yes.
if they were to shorten it by a track or 2, it's a really tight 75 minutes. But it's still, and the songs that I think meander a little bit are not bad by any means. But I think it, musically, it's just as amazing as a lot of the other things they've done. And it's not a happy sounding album, but I think it's a little cathartic for them, right? I think they needed to kind of get this album off their chest, and I think it probably helped them deal with the grief of losing their longtime friend. So yeah, I like it a lot.
I like dark music, so for me,
I do too. Yeah.
I'm just saying, if I mean, you can tell just from the cover, if you're looking for fucking cheery thoughts, get the
Not
fuck out.
here. Yeah, not here.
But it's great, and I think they sort of picked up. They refound their stride after trying to do a little too much weed and a little too much more easily palatable stuff. They just decided, all right, let's just remember who we were,
Yep.
and let's fucking rock hard. And this is great. So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I
love
like
this
it. Good stuff. All right, Ken.
All right, this one's for Anthony. So,
Yes, the quest.
no, yeah, right. Oh, well, I still got two more, you know. So my number 3, Steve Hackett, Surrender of Silence. Steve, not a good cover, but I don't like the artwork, but I like the music very much. I've always, I'm a huge fan. It's my favorite guitar player. But I find that his albums over the last decade or so could be a little uneven. There's always moments, but there's always moments where I always sort of felt like it could be better. He put out 2 good albums this year. He did Under Mediterranean Sky, the acoustic album, and this is the Fall on Electric album. And for me, this is the one that I would just keep going back to. He just seems re-energized. It's kind of typical of what he does. There's world and classical music themes that run through, but the guitar work is always amazing. You expect nothing less than incredible guitar work. It's there. For me, it seems like it's just heavier than in the past. At least a little more crunch. Some of it kind of reminds me. Some of the tunes kind of reminds me of like the tracks like The Steps, where it has like almost like that Russian, that Russian vibe to it. The vocals are actually okay. Steve's vocals are not bad. He's got Nat Sylvan singing on it, Amanda Lehman doing backing vocals. He's got the McBroom sisters that he stole away from Pink Floyd. They're on there. I think it's an excellent album. It's got a lot of guests on it, actually. He's got Nick DiVirgilio's playing on it. Yeah, I mean, you know what the problem is? Some of the other albums, they kind of sound like Steve set up in his living room and he recorded the album. And with this one, he probably did that as well, but he brought in a bunch of other people. It just seems like it's got a little more flesh on the bones. And this is, I think this is the best album he's done in years. So this is my number 3.
Let's check it out. I find with Steve, he's so prolific. I mean, he's got almost an album or 2 every year. I find I'm always playing catch up with his albums. And I find, like, generally speaking, most of his records, even the really generally good ones, half of it I really, really like a lot. A couple songs I'm okay with, and then there's a couple I don't really care for. I'd almost rather he not release as many albums so quickly and put like more of all the good stuff on one. And maybe we only get one every 3-4 years, but it's damn good through and through. I don't know.
Or maybe he needs a producer.
And that could be too. Yeah.
That's the problem, I think, these days with a lot of these bands. Probably because of finances, they don't have the money for it. But a lot of these, they need somebody with an overriding vision who can focus a talent like a Hackett and say, you know what, save that track for another album. It's not going on this one.
Yeah. Good point. We'll have to check it out. All right, Eric, you're number 3.
Hey, I'm going to take a mulligan here. We saw this guy live in November, Pete, and it's just something I've been listening to. I know live albums probably are not to be accepted, but I have to put this in. Pat Metheny's Side Eye. It was a great show, and there's just something about his playing. There's an atmosphere that he creates, and I just feel, not to sound corny, but I can sit and listen to him, and I just feel like it's enveloping me. Like that music just, there's a thickness to it. I don't even know if that's describing it well. And then seeing them live and seeing that trio perform that music, the keyboard player was absolutely phenomenal, covering all kinds of ground. And I have listened to that weekly before the show, and then after the show, I've continued to listen to it. So, and I know that's a lot of, there's some older tracks on there, and I think they do a cover. But it's definitely in my top 10 for the year. So I'm going with that one as my number 3, Pat Metheny's Side Eye NYC.
Cool. It's a good one. Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to describe his playing and his music because it's like it's light and airy and it's all heavy and enveloping and
Yeah,
wordy. I don't know. It's I've always found it very hard to describe his music and the effect it has on you. It's I don't know.
great.
Definitely unique.
Is he still playing the guitar synthesizer?
Yeah.
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 Probably 3 or 4 songs in the set. I think he used it, Ken. But
I haven't seen
the whale sounds as Pete and I described it, right? The
You know, but with Pat Metheny, the records change a lot, right?
Yeah. They
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
And the style is so he's just a great, you know, he's unique, right?
You know what was a great album he did? The Way Up.
Yep.
No, guys know that one?
Yep.
And then there was a live video of him doing it. I think it was in Korea. And,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I always said that was like his prog rock album.
The Way Up.
Definitely had some weird stuff on it. Yeah. Yeah. All his records are really good. They're all quite different from each other.
Yeah.
Great guy. All right, Stephen, you're number 3.
Well, my number 3, I reviewed on the webzine earlier in the year, and I made the bold statement that it may well be this band's defining statement. And then you and I did a ranking the album show, and I put it at number 2. So,
Not quite.
the second best defining statement from a catalogue of 4 albums. Either way, it's Frost is who it is, and this is Day and Age. So this is Frost doing what they do. There's catchy choruses, there's really technical stuff, there's great guitar playing from John Mitchell, there's fantastic keyboards from Jem Godfrey, and the bass playing of Nathan King is just stupendous. What I really like about this album is something that I didn't think I would. I like a band to be a band. We live in a world of projects. We live in ever-changing lineups. We live in a place where you see a guest list for an album that should blow you away and you think, these guys do 40 of these a year. It's not exciting. So when Frost said that they had 3 different drummers on this album, I was like,
Yeah, here we go again.
here we go. Why can we not just have a band with a drummer? But it's Pat Mastelotto, Kaz Rodriguez, and Darby Todd. It's 3 of the hottest properties out there right now. And the genius is they let them play. Nobody, I think, sat down with these guys and said, what I want you to do here is, they decided there's so much talent sitting behind the kit. This is the song, you express it. And it makes for an album that is, because it's got the same core band that wrote the songs, performed the songs, it's very cohesive. And yet there are distinct flavors that ebb and flow as the album runs through. And because of that, I feel I'm not a playlist shuffle guy anyway. If I put an album on, I'm listening to track 1 until it finishes. But you have to do that with Day and Age because it's been put together in a way that there is a journey. And these characters are allowed to come to the fore and then pull back. And it's remarkable that when you've got a band where the one member that isn't a member of the band can so often be allowed so much room to show what they're all about. And that's a real skill in itself, to allow someone that isn't the driving force and just say to them, do you know what, go play, go be you,
yeah,
and we'll make it work. And they've made it work. So is it a defining statement? I don't know, but it's bloody good. It's Day and Age by Frost.
I can say from experience, having worked with Pat Mastelotto, that when he sends you drum tracks, they're never what you expect to hear. And they're always brilliant. But it takes your brain a while to understand them. And then when you do, then you realize just how fucking good they are. So I'm glad that they didn't give him like a score to play, because then why the hell are you asking him?
Yeah.
Right? Get somebody else to just do it, right? But it's great. It's great.
Yeah, it was the quote from Terry Boatsseal many, many moons ago. I went to a drum clinic with him, and somebody in the Q&A asked the question, do you ever compromise when somebody asks you to guest on an album? And I mean, he's sitting behind a drum kit that I couldn't fit in the town that I live in.
Monster,
You know,
Yeah.
never mind the room that I'm sitting in. I mean, they could start bringing it in today, and tomorrow they'll be halfway through setting it up. And he said, no. He says, if you ask me to play on your album, you get me to play on your album. And I thought, well, there you go. Where's the point in getting a guy like that and then saying, we just need you to tone it back a little bit? So that is not what Frost did. I mean, not Terry Boatseal's not on it, but they didn't ask any of these three to pull it in and just do this, because, well, why would you do that?
Yeah.
One drummer and ask him to sit down and play. So yeah, I really like the way that it worked, and I didn't think I would.
Yes.
Really good album. It just missed my top 10. It's probably my number 11 or 12. I like it a lot. Might be my favorite Frost. I don't know. We debated that already, but I think my list has changed since then. So I don't know. I don't even remember. So.
Of course.
All right, George, number 3.
Number 3 is Cameron Graves, 7. This is Stanley Clark's keyboard player, second solo album. It's a fusion quartet record. He plays all piano, but this is brutal. He built it in the press material as thrash jazz, and it's not that far off of that, actually. Very aggressive record. Like Stephen was saying about the other record, it's short. It's only half an hour, but that's because it might be too much if it was more than that. This is an assault. There's one softy on here, and they close with one vocal song, which is probably a little ill-advised. Cameron sings himself, and not the best singer I've ever heard, but the rest of it is just pummeling quartet fusion. So check it out. Cameron Graves, 7.
Great cover art on that. All right, my number 3 is the latest album from these guys, Transatlantic, The Absolute Universe, Forevermore. I got the extended version. There's a bigger version than this. I couldn't imagine any more than this. This to me is a lot. It's like to think that they had a third option to this. I'm like, all right, but it's like I guess it was Eric said, you know what to expect from these guys. It's big, it's bombastic. You got all the personalities of all the guys come through. And again, this band pops up every bunch of years, like 5-6 years. And it's like there was no time in between. They all sound like Transatlantic. They're all high quality. I love the production. I love hearing, like I said, all the little bits from each of the guys, because they all shine in every way on here. So yeah, it's good. This takes a while to get through, though. I will say this is what you call pushing the boundaries of what you want a double album to be, right? But it's glorious, and I love it. So that's my number 3.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So that falls just outside. If we're doing honourable mentions, it'll be one of my honourable mentions, and it will be that version. Now, when I listened to that, I also listened to the shorter version that Eric chose earlier on. I haven't heard the longer version. Not sure if any of us have heard the longer version. I don't know. Is it advisable to drop 3 versions of the same album on the same day?
I mean, Mike told me to my face, he said, every version is different.
Really?
Oh, well,
Really?
there are quite wild differences between the 2 I've heard. I mean, there's different lyrics, and there's different things that are pieced together, and there's bits that are taken out. And I personally have found it difficult to go back to without kind of going, so this bit does that, then that bit does this, but it didn't do that in the last one. Oh, that bit's from here. Where did this bit go? And it's kind of spoiled my enjoyment of it a little bit. The more I go back to it, the more I kind of analyse the work they did. And I get to the end of the album and I go, oh, it's finished. Did I listen to any of that? Just me.
One vision. Just give me one vision.
Yeah, but you know what the problem is? There's enough fans who will go out and buy 2 or 3 different versions.
But it's like if you have 3 versions that are totally different, did you really make an album, or did you Franken-prog your way to the bank?
I could tell you that the long version for us outsold the shorter version by a lot.
Right. Okay. So
very few. Nobody was coming in to buy Transatlantic and say, give me the $13 version. You know, I want the $15 version. Oh,
Except
I
for
did.
Eric.
Eric.
sorry, Eric. You know,
I'm
And
cheap.
by the way, I'm kind of siding with Eric.
but no, I mean,
I'm with Peter.
the longer version, you know, the fan, the hardcore fan buys the box set. They
You're
buy,
right.
you know, they want it all. There's always going to be that person.
You know, with that though, Ken, having her, I have all of them up to that. And honestly, when it got to that, I said, I know what to expect from Transatlantic, and 60 minutes was enough. I'm sure I'm missing something not having the 90, but it wasn't like they went like this and it's, oh my God, they're
Well, but why not pick the longer one, buy the longer one and kind of focus on
because
the
I
stuff
wouldn't
you like.
listen to it. Probably. I
Well,
probably, you know,
You
I
know,
don't
there
know
is,
that I would,
you know,
I don't
there's
know that
one-
I would listen to
I
it.
don't know if there's this new feature. It's not really a new feature. They implemented it a while ago. It's called fast forwarding. And you know, you can
That is true.
you can kind of jump around if you like.
But
And
then you have to, you know, you
they
got to
even
press
put in
buttons.
index points and stuff. So
But I'm with George.
Does
I
take
think-
up more room on the shelf. I will say that much. It is a little thicker, you know. so Space is an issue.
prefer-
I mean, we sold an enormous amount of Transatlantic, and I got to tell you, the what do they call it, Breath of Life or something like that, the short version.
Yeah.
That was the one that by far sold the least. Still sold fine, but sold the least.
So does it show, do you think, the ultimate band democracy, or is it the ultimate band non-democracy?
Non-democracy.
It would appear to be that what they did was they sat down and thought, I don't agree that you've made the best version of the album, so I'm going to make a version of the album. And then they made another version of the album, and they all listened to these 3 versions and went, put them all out. It's an amazing concept. I mean,
Yeah.
as Ken says, how many people bought 3 versions? Loads, and fair play to them. I'm all for that. I've got shelves filled with the same albums over and over and over, but they're the same albums over and over and over. Did Transatlantic make 3 albums, or did they make not quite 1 album? I'm not sure.
I mean,
Had they done that with their first record, I would have bought, because it was those guys. I'd never heard them before. I'm sure I would have bought the long version. By the time I got to this one, 60 minutes to me was fine.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I'm always been an advocate with my bands, and I always say, go with your best 50 to 60 minutes. You know, after that, you're kind of wearing out your welcome.
Yeah, you're pushing. Yeah, you're right.
You know, I mean, yeah, I can't tell you how many times you wind up fighting with bands over a song, and then you find out the reason why that song was on there was because so and so wrote the song, and he didn't really get to write very much on the album. And,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and there's a lot of politics. I mean,
Yes.
maybe I'm wrong, because you know I'm getting old and I'm starting to forget stuff. Didn't Ronnie put out like his mix of one of the Transatlantic
Yes, he
albums?
did. Yes, he did.
Because you know, so even the guys themselves, they see it, they see the music a little differently.
I mean, I'm sure there's a fair amount of ego, Dan, right?
I think there's a lot of politics that goes into doing something the way they did it.
Even reading the interviews around the album at the time, I think the word that I would use would be tension. There seemed to be very little agreement about why they did what they did and which was the best version. Anyway, sorry, I opened that can of worms there.
I'm with you.
All right, back to Lewis.
All right, for my number 2, I'm gonna go to an Italian band. It's the project of one main guy, but it's an instrumental album. This thing has been really, really in heavy rotation here. I'm talking about Ske Insolubilia. This album is phenomenal. It's not an easy listen, but if you let your brain do the math with it for a few plays and then you live with it, it will just keep giving you gifts. And so, and the artwork, and so it has a nice little essay. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing, you know, that they did with this. It has, you know, the artwork has this austere, almost elegance to it, which is reflected in the music. But the music is very layered. It's not full of space. It's like really in your face. top level composition. I really can't recommend this enough. This is fantastic. I mean, if you're a prog head and you don't have this, you need to buy it. It's just that simple. This
Great
album.
cover art. Love the artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is amazing. And you can go to his Bandcamp and order directly from the guy. He's got a couple of others, but this came out this year, and I've been in love with this record ever since it came out.
Yeah, we've heard the one before. It's tremendous as well.
Yeah, this is great, phenomenal.
Cool.
I actually like this one a little better than the previous one.
I haven't heard the new one yet.
Yeah.
All right, Ken, number 2.
All right, I'll keep this short because everybody's talked about it, and also because I have to pee. So my number 2 is Agusa. So this was their 4th album, as we said. There's a new keyboard player. His name is Roman Andrin, and he kind of unlocks his inner Peter Bardens. He goes very heavy on the Hammond organ, and he locks him perfectly with the guitar and the flute. I mean, this are basically just 2 sidelong instrumental tracks. There's kind of a dark quality to it, very Scandinavian. It'll just remind you of like Ragnarok, and you'll hear maybe a little camel because of the flute, but it's got the sound, of those classic 70s prog bands from Scandinavia, from Sweden and Norway, and that's what they were shooting for, and they hit it.
Beautiful.
I still have to pee.
Okay, you can excuse yourself.
I'm fine.
You could also just, reuse the diaper.
Been there, done that.
That doesn't work, Alyssa.
Yeah.
It sounds good, but it doesn't really, in practice, it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
All right, Eric, you're number 2.
Okay, my number 2 should be my number 1, but I have to save my number 1 for a special reason. But my number 2, thank you, George and Pete. You did a great review on this. Kick the Cat,
Yes.
Gurgle, fusion, funk, fun, rock. I mean, they just play balls out play. It's 4 guys, and anyone who's into instrumental, buy this. I've got to get the others. I think Pete, you went out and got the others.
Yep.
But again, thank you. Another recommendation from the channel, and they're just fabulous. That should be my number 1, but it is my number 2.
Chris Siebold is a great guy, the guitar player. I mean, the guys in the band are all really cool cats, but
Oh, it's so good.
if he's
so good.
watching, Chris, great job as usual.
Yep. All right, Stephen, number 2.
So my number 2 has already been mentioned, and it's an album that I've only really listened to in the last 3-4 weeks. A good friend emailed me out of the blue and said, "This is an album I think you'll really like." I went and found it, listened to it online, thought it was really good. The more I listen, the more I like it. I've probably listened to it at least twice a day since, maybe more. And then you reviewed it on the channel, and it's Caliganaut, and it's magnified as giants. It, for me personally, came completely out of left field. I was completely unaware of it. I don't have a physical copy yet, but I definitely will be. So they're based around Ola Michael Bjorndal, and as Peter said earlier, there's guys from Wobbler on there. The man himself has got links with Oak and Airbag and the Bjorn Reese band, and you just bring all of those things together, mix them in the pot, and what comes out, in my humble opinion, is arguably better. So maybe not better than Wobbler, but it's just really, really good, and it's taken me completely by surprise. So yeah, Caliganaut, magnified as giants.
Very cool. All right, George.
I'm in lockstep with Eric again. Number 2, Kick the Cat, Gurgle. First album in 16 years, long break. But yeah, back in exact form that they left in. I mean, just a great record. Ticks all the boxes that you'd want out of it. And like Eric said, everyone, if you like instrumental music, this is a must.
Yes, indeed. All right, my number 2 is the hell's the name of this again? A View from the Top of the World, Dream Theater.
I was expecting that. Yeah.
I always forget the title of it. I'm like, what the hell is this called? perhaps, I don't know, I like their last one a lot. I tend to look at Dream Theater in terms of eras, kind of. So I think all of the Mike Mangini era albums since Portnoy left, I've kind of like put into a little box, and I often compare them to each other rather than go back and compare them to, pre-Mangini. And I really like this one a lot. I think it gets back to a little more kind of cohesive songwriting, heavier songs, still has that Dream Theater flair to them, but less, I say less epic, but there's a 20-minute track on here and there's a 10-minute track. So I guess that doesn't really hold water, but I like the production of it. Some people are a little skeptical of Petrucci's producing. This one's mixed by Andy Sneap. I think it sounds just bigger and ballsier. I like it. It's got the catchy, vocal harmonies on here, lots of crunchy guitar, great keys. I kind of like Rudess's keyboard sounds a little bit more on this album. I think he's using more kind of like organic sounding things, sound a little more Hammond organ and just straight synth sounds rather than some of that weird carnival stuff that he does from time to time, which
The iPad.
Yeah, I'm hit or miss with some of his. He's a great player, but sometimes I'm not always into the sounds he uses. But I think he sounds really good on here. And more importantly, John Mayung is like all over this album. You can really hear him in the mix. And that's...
He was not Mayung?
Yeah. Wow. Sometimes he's like the Invisible Man on these albums.
Yes, and most of them.
Yeah, not on this one.
You're playing live and you don't hear anything.
Yeah,
You're fucking killing it.
Yeah.
Like,
but The View from the Top of the World, Dream Theater is my number
right.
2 on the prog side. So
I have a confession to make. I have not heard it, nor the one before it, because that's how pissed off I was by The Astonishing.
Yeah, I agree.
The Astonishing was so fucking bad, and I felt so angry at them for doing it that I just said, I'm done.
Well, you will. I think the last 2 you will be pleasantly surprised. Arguably, could be the best 2 of the Mangini era, or pretty close to there. It's almost like The Astonishing was like the blip on the radar that they had to get that turd out of the way, because everything since then has been really good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
And there's no Kevin Shirley engineering, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Bonus. That's a bonus.
Yeah.
All right, Lewis, you're number 1.
All right. The heart wants what the heart wants. And for me, the best record I heard this year has to be Between the Buried and Me, Colors 2. I absolutely love this record. I've been playing it nonstop, and the more I listen to it, the more I like it. It's just I was really, really scared when I saw it at Reckless. I thought, oh, they did the Queensryche thing, right? They Operation Mindcrime 2, which was fucking terrible. I thought, oh, this is not going to be good. But we did the episode in the channel, Pete, and I absolutely love this. Colors Part 2. If people are a little, it's not an easy listen, and they do have the death growls in addition to clean vocals, so that's a deal breaker for many. But I just love it, and it has Mike Portnoy playing drums and a whole bunch of other guests. It's in addition to just the regular band, who are phenomenal. I really can't say enough good things about this record. It's great. I mean, you have to like heavy music. If you want to hear pastoral little, unicorns and things, this is not for you. But this has been my favorite of the year. Of what obviously with a caveat that I didn't hear everything that was put out, right? Obviously. So I maybe heard 20 or 30 new albums this year, and this was the one. This one and Ske were like 1 and 2 flipping, but in reality, this is just so fucking good. So, and it made me happy that they got back to a little bit more concise songwriting. Like some of the other ones, they just like threw everything into it, including the kitchen sink and all the leftover food scraps and everything. It was all just there. And now they really did it. I love this record. Between the Buried and Me, Colors Part 2.
Good choice. Yeah. All right, Ken, what do you got at number 1?
All right, so I've always got to pull something out of left field, right? This one was something that came to me just at the end of the year, a few weeks ago, and I locked onto it. And for me, it is a total mind fuck. And unfortunately, if you guys want to hear it, you're gonna have to buy a turntable. It's called Third Eye Sound Cycles. Third Eye started out as an extension of a Dutch trio called the Jan Hoyts Trio. Jan Hoyts was a keyboard player, and they made some interesting albums, but then they morphed into Third Eye, and Third Eye made these two sort of, I call them like funky jazz rock albums that came out in the early 70s. So somebody's been, this label, 676 Records, they've been kind of mining the archives. And this is an album that was never released. It's from 1973. These were studio sessions. They went to the original analog master tapes. The sound is incredible. It's actually has a very strong krautrock sound. It's more towards the rock side than the jazz rock side. It's all long tracks, tons of Fender Rhodes, ARP Odyssey. There's just like face melting guitar work. There's sitar. I mean, they throw everything at you. Long tracks, man. I just listened to this album. I couldn't stop playing it, and I just melted into my sofa. It was unbelievable album. It would be great if they would do this as a CD. I don't know if there are any plans for it. I got to tell you guys, buy a turntable. You don't own a turntable. You need to own a turntable to hear this record. It's that good. This is my number one. Third Eye Sound Cycles.
I've seen you post that on Facebook many times. I'm like,
guys, you got to hear this record. It is, and unfortunately, you know, like if you go to the label's website, they put up like 30-second samples. It's not on Bandcamp. I guess they're just pushing the vinyl. I'm really a little surprised they didn't put out CDs. And actually, the old Third Eye albums never made it to CD. But what's kind of cool was this label a few years ago, actually, it may have been 5 years ago, they put out unreleased album by the Jan Hoyts Trio, which was like a precursor. And it was funny because the sticker on the album said that if this album was released in 1971, it would be on your want list now. And it's true because it had that sound. It sounded almost like Popol Vuh on acid or something. I mean, it was, you know, so it's just got this sound, and it's the real deal. It's just masters from 1973, and hopefully there's even more stuff coming. Brilliant stuff that for me totally resonated. And I haven't gotten to spend an enormous amount of time with it. I'm looking forward to really digging into it. My number one.
Beautiful.
all right, Eric, you're number one.
So my number one, we lost this guy this year, and I have listened to this pretty much nonstop since I got it. It is my second mulligan, but I couldn't go without putting this in there. It's probably the thing I've listened to most over the last couple months that I've had this, I think a month and a half or so. It's the Chick Corea Acoustic Band live. And you just feel like you're in a little club listening to him. His music is, you know, I always liked Return to Forever. I had some of his solo stuff, but I don't know what the impact was when he passed, but something clicked with me. I've been listening to his stuff pretty much all year since he passed. And when that came out, and again, I know a live album, you know, I'm kind of going off the rails a little bit, but I just love him. I
You're
think
pulling
it's
a
huge-
Catino tonight, it sounds like.
I guess so, but honestly, it's probably what I've listened to most over the last month and a half that I've had it. I love it, and I love him. I love his music. He's
Yes.
missed, and that's my number one for this year.
We miss you, Chick. We miss you.
Does it come with a copy of Dianetics?
It does not. Scientology, though, right?
I always
L.
have to throw that in when you mention Chick Corea.
I know. Little L. Ron Hubbard never, you know, what are you going to do?
It did hurt some people.
True.
You're gonna run away from it and just listen to Chick.
That's right.
That's right.
All right, Stephen, what do you got at number one?
Well, I can only apologise if there's been lots and lots of, excuse me, background noise here during this show. It's not my other half coming through to say, why do you spend all of your nights with these guys online? It's an angry mob outside with pitchforks and torches, shouting, "This is not prog. It's not prog." And I don't care because it's Stephen Wilson. There you go, you see, and it's the Future Bites. And you like what you like and you don't like what you don't like. And
Absolutely.
whether there was a love it or hate it album, this is it. And I know that there will be so many comments below about how many people hate it. I'm down with that. I respect it. I'm not telling anyone they're wrong, because if they don't like it, they don't like it. I absolutely love it. The contrary people are the ones that go, yeah, it's all right. No one thinks that about this album. They either love it or they hate it. There's going to be lots and lots of hate below. I was lucky enough to get myself a new amp just a couple of weeks ago for the hi-fi. That was the album that I put on to see just how damn good it sounds, and it sounds damn fantastic. I love the sound that Stephen Wilson can make, and I just love the clarity of it, and I appreciate that it is very poppy. And I was delighted, utterly delighted when the news about Porcupine Tree broke, because that to me hopefully will allow his prog side to progress and what he's doing in his solo work to continue, because I understand the pressures that he must be put under by so many people to do certain things. And I believe that what he loves to do is what he's doing now. I may be wrong. He might do a Russian polka album next, who knows, because that's the sort of guy that he is. There was a very, very quickly, competition on Burning Shed last couple of weeks on their Twitter. You could win one of the recent reissues that have come out, beautiful yellow vinyl, and you could win a copy of that, which was very limited, if you could say exactly how many studio albums Stephen Wilson has been a driving force of and appeared from track 1 until the end. And the answer, which I was 1 out on, was 53. 53. Wow. That's ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. So his catalogue does that, and there are areas of it that I cannot stand. I'm not an acolyte. I'm not a blind follower. There are certain projects that he is the leader of. I hear the name, I'll give it a listen. I know I won't buy it, but I love his solo work, and I continue to love his solo work. And I love the Future Bites, and I can only apologise to everyone who's going to ruin their keyboard complaining about that.
Never apologize. Fuck.
Oh, you were doing so well.
I love the lyrics on that album.
Yep.
I just thought the music didn't have it just couldn't carry the message convincingly for me for the first time in his solo career. And it's not because it's poppy. I just thought it was thin.
There's obviously something in my head, because nobody's going to speak to me after this. I'm not going to be invited back on the show. Because I do tend to veer towards the side of Rush that is sterile and stark and keyboard driven. There's something about that kind of, and I do call it sterile, and that's usually something that you would use as a real negative. I love that sound, and Stephen Wilson is the modern version of that for me, and it just clicks, and you like what you like, and you don't like what you don't like. So there you go.
Stephen, I know what's in your head. I know it's in your head. It's a long spike, I think.
It's just turning round and round.
You also like the Jean-Michel Jarre album Oxygen, right?
Yep, love it.
So that aesthetic is represented somehow.
Yeah, absolutely, I would agree. That's very much so. It's dark but remarkably bright at the same time. It's a very contradictory way of explaining it, but that's kind of how it feels.
I think it's accurate. Actually, I think you nailed it with that spike.
There you go.
Yeah, it's good.
And now George is going to surprise us all, and his number 1 is the Stephen Wilson album.
Yeah.
I would not believe that for a nanosecond.
No, I wouldn't either.
I'm piggyback on Pete. Dream Theater.
All right, both of you are saying it's good. Now I have to listen to it.
Right,
It's a good album. It's a very good album.
I think it can't be helped, like you said. It's to look at it as the Mangini era. I've been pretty disappointed in it. The first two I thought were, okay, middle of the road. The Appalling, we all know about that. Like you, the last one, Distance of Time, a good step back to where we need to be. But this one just covers all the little holes that one had. The best sound that they've had, the sneak thing, you can feel it. The keyboard patches, like you mentioned. Mangini, to me, he's a guy who phoned it in on all the other albums. He can play anything. You see that on the live things, but beat construction, a little like, he didn't really care. He's unleashed on this. I mean, the conspiracy guys will say it's because Portnoy played on the two records in between, whatever about all that, but no softies on this either. Some of their ballads are really saccharine, so for that, not to have one, that's always good. My only thing is the epic, I think, is a middle of the road epic for them. If that was one of their good ones, this would be up there for me. But as it stands, it's still the best of the post Portnoy era.
Yeah, it's quite good.
All right, that's. I'm gonna have to buy it now.
See that? There you go. All right, my number one on the prog side here today. It's already been mentioned once already today. Crash of the Crown by Styx. I think the only thing I don't like about this album is I find many of the songs aren't long enough. It's like there's some fantastic ideas on here and great vocal melodies and choruses, and then like 2 minutes and 50 seconds or 3 minutes and 25 seconds and the song is done. You're like, I want more. It's like, I want like some guitar solos. I want, extended riffing. I want, to hear that chorus 3 times, not 1.5 or twice. And, but I think what's on here is amazing. So many great songs. I love The Mission, the last album they did. And I agree with everything Steven said. It's almost like, this band kind of rediscovered themselves. It's like all of a sudden they've discovered the thirst for recording and writing new music, where after Cyclorama, they were basically like, yeah, we're done doing new albums. Nobody buys them. Nobody's interested. We'll just tour constantly and play the hits. And then all of a sudden they got the bug. And now their last two, kind of like what Deep Purple has done in recent years. It's like all of a sudden they've rediscovered that they can go and write really good, memorable new music that makes them feel good, that makes them want to go out and create again. And the fans are loving it. And I think it's really interesting now you have this whole like competition between the Dennis DeYoung fans and the Styx fans, and which album is better. And, they both released 2 new albums in the last couple of years. And it's like, who cares? If they can't play nice together, they're releasing great music on their own. And I think that's the important thing. And I like this a lot. I think it's memorable. They're doing some different things on here though too. There's like an element of like Queen, City Boy, 10cc, like vocal harmony and interplay. Like I said, the only thing I really wish is that there was a little more James Young on this album. He's kind of like the invisible guy in this album, which I think he sings like parts of one song, and there's not enough guitar solos. But other than that, the songs are really memorable. There's tons of keyboards, and Tommy Shaw sounds amazing. Lawrence Gowan sounds amazing on here. I like it a lot. I think.
Have they done any touring for this album?
Oh yeah. And they're playing, I think, 3 songs off the album on the tour.
Maybe they stretch them out live. I don't know. It seems.
I mean, I had the same issue with The Mission. I felt like, some of the tracks, I mean, some were okay, 4 or 5 minutes long, but some of the ones that I really, really resonated with me, I just wanted to hear them longer. And it's even more so on this album. Like there's like 15 tracks on here. And I almost wish they would have chopped off a couple and made a few of them a little longer. Not that I would want to take out necessarily any of these songs, but there's a good bunch of them that are like, they're like 2.5, barely 3 minutes, and then they're moving on to the next song already. It's like you kind of want them to stick around a little bit longer. I mean, that's what was so good about the classic Styx stuff. You had these great 4 to 5 minute long tracks that gave you a little bit of everything. You had the big riffing, you had the keyboard solo, you had the proggy bit, the hard rock bit, the great vocal harmonies, and you get a lot of that here, but just, I want a little more of it. But I think it's a terrific album. I really like it a lot. It sounds fantastic. So that's my number 1.
Luis, you could see him at a county fair near you.
I've never seen Styx live.
No, they're really good live still.
I feel like I should at some point.
They're good live.
I've never seen Kansas either.
Oh, they're really good live too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still.
The other day at practice, the guys in the band were telling me that I just have to go, right?
Yeah.
So we said, well, you let me know when they play and we'll go.
You
Let's make
should.
it.
Yeah, you'll have a good time.
And the current version is excellent live. Really good.
I mean, I want to see Kansas with Tom Brisland. I think Tom Brisland is a brilliant keyboard player.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And he gets a lot of room to do his thing.
I
He
was talking
does.
about Flex there, sorry, because I've never seen Kansas because they've never played anywhere near me.
Yeah. Yeah,
well,
it's-
coming over. they play here a lot.
They do. So there you have it, everybody. Our 10 favorite albums of 2021 on the prog side. Like I said, you'll get my more hard rock and metal picks next week on the Hudson Valley Squares, and you'll get my combined list of 30 that I'll be doing all by my lonesome sometime between now and then, or shortly after, and whenever I get to it, because we got the holidays, crazy time of year to be recording stuff, but we're going to squeeze in as much as we can. So thanks for spending over 2 hours with us today on this. Hopefully you've heard about some releases that you may have missed here in 2021. You probably still can place an order with a place like lasercd.com and get stuff
Taking
in
notes.
time for the holidays. Look at that shopping list right there. So, there
We're
is
working.
still time to get a delivery. Well, hopefully, I think if you place your
We're
order
working.
tonight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're shipping.
That's right.
I'm already on it.
You need a UPS, we could UPS.
That's right. That's right.
Correct.
So thanks for watching, everybody, on this, I guess, last minute best of 2021 edition of In the Prog Seat. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all
The damn
time. For Stephen Reid, Eric Porter, Ken Golden, George Lamie, and Louis Nasser, I am Pete Pardo. Good night, everybody. See you in 2 weeks. We're going to take a week off from In the Prog Seat next week to enjoy the holidays, but we'll see you after the new year. Till then, be good, everybody. Take care.